Hello, my name is Arch, and I am about to commit an act of channel seppuku, as in the current year, I am not only going to talk about the Society of Magical... And yes, that is going to happen every time. But I am also going to make a spirited argument for, in favor of, and in defense of racial humor. I know, I'd have better chances of surviving the seppuku. And yet, this is an important point to actually make, as the period in history where we had the most virulent periods of racial humor was also probably the single least racist period in human history. Which is again the point I'm going to be making. But let me frame things here a little bit, shall we? So, the Society of Magical... Which, by the way, my conspiracy theory is that YouTube is not going to take any actions on any mentions of this title for now. They're not going to demonetize you, they're not going to eat you, but they are going to wait until the movie releases, then they're going to comb through the internet for that one person who is going to sit there and go like, what is this goddamn magic in my entertainment? They're casting magic on good, honest white people, turning them all into clones. After which, YouTube will scour his presence from the internet with the force and fury of 1,000 thermobaric bombs, and then they will whisper gently into the ears of their automated bots whilst holding up a ragged, bloody scrap remnant of the previous guy and simply say, kill. So you will excuse my caution. But the Society of Magical has received a lot of blowback from, well, my side of things, because of one of its key core components appeared to be racial humor against white people, with the joke in the second trailer being, nothing is so dangerous in the world as an uncomfortable white man. And in this current era of actual, genuine anti-white discrimination, not in a haha funny kind of way, but in actually barring you from employment kind of way, I can absolutely see how people are going to look at that and go, well, that is actually unironically racist. Because right now, racism is not a joking matter, but it is an actual legal matter against one group of people in particular. So I get the outrage, but at the same time, I will say this. I am hoping that the Society of Magical will be a baby step, a first move towards renormalizing racial humor. And if any group is going to need to eat that bullet for that to happen, let it be me. Because you know what? We can handle it. We've already been actively racially discriminated against and actively, artificially disadvantaged for a good decade now. We can handle it. A word is not going to send us crying into a corner requiring psychological help. Whereas, according to the mainstream media, that might be the impact of certain other mythical power words at the moment. So, let me launch into the main meat of my argument here. There was a time where racial humor was entirely commonplace. It was normal. It was normalized. And you could go damn far with it. Perhaps one of the furthest examples is now the rather famous skit by Dave Chappelle with the Black Klansman. And it was goddamn funny. I mean, at this point in time, being funny was more about being edgy. It was about pushing the envelope ever forward. The greatest comedy shows of all time were edgy shows. The greatest comedy shows of all time also tended to near universally be in the distant past. If you look up like the 30 best shows ever on IMDb, for example, 98% of them happened before the year 2000. In fact, I think there's only like 2 post-2000 entries on the entire list. And it brought people together. See, this is the thing. Back then, we all agreed that humor had a key core component, which was absurdity. And racial humor was immediately recognizable as absurd because judging someone based on the color of their skin or simply by some crazy over-the-top racial stereotype was absurd. Something we seem to have forgotten in modern-day society. It's remarkable, isn't it? The more progressive we have become, the more racist we have also become. And the less capable have we become of detecting the obvious absurdity in racist humor. As everyone got their turn at the grilling. There were white people jokes, there were black people jokes, there were Asian jokes, there were brown people jokes, there were religious jokes, there were jokes about familial stereotypes, the crazy aunt and uncle, for example. There were jokes about sexuality. There were even jokes about diseases, dangerous, virulent diseases that we didn't quite understand at the time. One of the best stand-up comedy shows of all time, for example, Delirious, talks about AIDS. And oh boy, that was a boogeyman and a half at that time. And yet, he could make the jokes about it. And by making jokes about it, you demystify it. You don't turn it into a mainstream media thing, because the news are always going to be like, oh my god, Armageddon, the death of humanity, more at 9. Like they did with certain other recent pandemics, for example. And if we were able to joke about that one, perhaps we wouldn't have had to roger our own economies for 2 years before finally pulling our heads out of the sands like fighting ostriches and looking around going, we're not all dead? Oh my god, my television told me we'd all be dead by now. It's a miracle. No, not really, but hey, details, right? This also was further enhanced by the fact that everybody was in on it. It brought people together. To go to a stand-up show, you needed to actively participate. You needed to consent to be there. Consent in the... There's another one. Consent is another concept that has been, on the one hand, reinforced again and again and again, to the point where it's actually lost any and all of its actual meaning today. Today, you need to consent to everything, yet at the same time, anything that you have not explicitly consented to is some sort of an assault. To the point that hearing a joke on social media that was repeated in a stand-up comedy sense, well, now you haven't consented to that. Now it's offensive. Now it's dangerous. Which, by the way, is one of the leading reasons why stand-up comedy has been so absolutely butchered over the course of the last 10-odd years. Because you take a joke that is funny in context, strip it of all context, strip it of the setting, strip it of the comedy of it, and you paste it blank-faced on social media for people to read. And then they go, well, that's just evil. Yeah, that's kind of the point. The absurdity of it is kind of the point. And it means that we all get more offended by everything. Whereas again, back in the day, where you had a lot of this even on like television, some of the most popular like comedic television shows of back in the day were specifically centered around black characters, often acting out stereotypes of being black or stereotypes of being white. Because these were funny. You blew it up, everybody was in on the joke, everybody understood, and it brought everyone closer. Because we were now able to actually share these experiences. We were able to connect to one another via shared humor. We would be able to take something that used to be very serious, mind you, as well. Race used to be a very serious topic. It was a topic of, well, mainstream academia for hundreds of years. It was something that you should think about, okay? And we managed to turn that into a normalized thing. We made fun of it, we mocked it, we demystified it, again, until the pigmentation of our skin became less important than the actual character of the person. And that, obviously, is where we would like to go again. And it's not the direction we have been going in recently. Racial humor is a unifying force. It breaks down barriers. It does not build them up. That is not the point. The point of a joke is to be funny and absurd. It is not to create barriers. In fact, as long as you approach it in the context of a joke, it can never construct barriers. Even the most hateful joke about the most hateful thing, if taken as a joke and laughed at, will be dispelled by that very fact. You can turn the most negative words imaginable into positive ones, which incidentally is the history of, well, the power word we all know. It used to be the most derogatory insult one could imagine, and yet it has been turned into a matter of song and culture for the very people that it was invented to denigrate. An achievement that we never actually talk about or attribute to the people who did it, but hey, that's just because I'm a bad right-winger, I guess. If we are ever going to get out of the current year racial nonsense, where we are more divided than ever, we need to be able to laugh at something. We need to be able to share something. And the easiest thing in the world to share is a joke. So I, for one, in my boundless naivete, and I entirely understand, by the way, that this is probably not going to happen the way I want it to, that the Society of Magical will be able to make the joke about white people. And white people will be able to look at it and go, that's a joke. And it's a funny joke, because yes, white people are the single most dangerous animal on Earth. When you really break it down, we absolutely are. What corner of the planet haven't we invaded exactly? What corner of the planet hasn't been intruded upon by Whitey and his unending ambition? We went to the North and the South Pole, we did. The places where nothing but penguins and polar bears live, and one of them which basically nothing lives. We went there and went, I'm going to put my flag here. In fact, we had races to do this, where the Norwegians, by the way, beat out the British. Ah, Britain, you will always eternally be second place on the most inhospitable place on Earth. We explored the deepest deserts, the darkest jungles. We're currently trying to figure out how to delve at the bottom of the ocean. There is no area of the planet safe from the intrusion of the eternal white man. That is a joke. That is funny. We should be able to laugh at that. And if that is the central point of humor in this movie, then I say that instead of approaching it from the very real racist standpoint of the current year, we should try to have fun with it. We should try to laugh at it. Because maybe by doing so, we will also allow the other side to... My boundless naivete again just struck me over the head like a rebar iron, but maybe we can then point to everyone else and go, look, it's okay. It's okay. It's clearly a joke. We're having fun here. We can all have fun here. Would you like to join in? Again, I admit this is an optimistic narrative, and yet I'd like to give it a shot, okay? So try to approach the Society of Magical with as open a mind as you can. For once, right? For a moment. Let's give it a chance. And if it ends up biting us, well, if nothing else, a lesson will have been learned. Do let me know what you think in the comments section down below, as always, of course. And until next time, I have been Arch. If there'll be a next time, have a good day.